Hey there, Internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, returning from my Disney escapades, Trevor Starkey. Thank you to my co-host this week, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, nerds?
What is going on? Thank you to you and Frank for holding down the fort for me again last week. It was the second time you guys have done an episode in the near past where you spend a bunch of it just kind of slagging off me for no reason whatsoever. I don't know if you think I'm just not going to listen to it or whatever when you send me the audio file, but you guys were kind of...
Oh, no, I know you're going to listen to it.
Okay. Yeah, you guys were kind enough to cover that. Before that, when my internet crashed one night, and then last week you guys basically you were recording as I think I was like landing back home from my recent Disney trip. So thank you for doing that. It's fun hearing you guys nerd out about DMC and Elden Ring and Bayonetta stuff that I would have zero to input to provide anything on.
Last week's episode was 100% Frank ass, Cam ass show.
Yeah, how's your light? Is your light locked in, secure in position, or are we at risk of that falling again today?
No, we should be good.
Okay.
Should be good.
Okay.
I have experimented with a couple of different things. This one seems to be working. So
sounds good. Well, today's episode is going to be all about Tunic, and then a new updated Elden Ring and Dying Light 2 thoughts from Cameron as he's continued to put more time into those games. And that's probably going to be about it. We might veer into, tangents here and there or something like that, but it'll probably be a pretty light show. Before we dive into that, though, a little bit of housekeeping for you. Every Saturday, you can check out me and Logan talking about James Bond on That Bond Show. This most recent episode is for the ill-named Octopussy, which means we are almost done with the Roger Moore era. I'm finally almost free of that. I never, peek behind the curtain. We're 3 weeks ahead in terms of recording for that. So I've escaped Roger Moore for a couple weeks now and never have to think about him again. Hooray. But we do have one last episode of that era coming up. I don't remember what that one was called. Something, blah, 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 something. But then we get into the Timothy Dalton era, and then we're into the movies that I've actually seen in the Pierce Brosnan stuff, as well as some of the Daniel Craig movies. So check those out every Saturday on YouTube, youtube.com/thatnerdysite for Logan's and my thoughts on that. And then the other thing to give a shout out to that we will talk about probably a little bit more at length in the course of the main show is Cameron's ongoing Friday Night Dying Light series as he continues to play through Dying Light 2. We had episode 8 just recently uploaded that you can go check out on the YouTube right now, which was part of kind of Cameron's second real batch of episode recording. And I think that's why we're going to have some updated thoughts here today is Cameron kind of returning to the game after some diversions away for Horizon and Elden Ring and maybe something else in there in the mix. So yeah, go check out all that good stuff over on our YouTube, youtube.com/thatnerdysite. Other than that, if you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. So Cam, I don't know where do you want to start with Elden Ring? Do you want to start with Dying Light? Do you want me to kick off with Tunic? How do you want to?
Let's kick things off with some Elden Ring, and then we can hit some Tunic, and then some Dying Light 2 on the way. Actually, let's start with Dying Light 2.
Okay.
Because I think that'll be the shortest one.
Okay.
And then hit up Tunic, and then end it with some Elden Ring.
Sounds good. Then hit me with Dying Light 2. What are where you at? Where are your updated thoughts? How are things going with that game right now?
Man, so I literally just got into some of the most interesting parts that I've gotten and played through. So far, there's been a lot of talk about choices and decisions in a lot of the promo material for Dying Light 2.
Mm-hmm. How
and
you like
I've
the way you play out a side quest can drastically change the world and stuff like that. I remember one of the first ones being shown off is like you can flood a place or you can like let it thrive or something, and then they would show
yeah,
like footage of rooftop towns kind of like thriving and luxurious or just devastated.
yeah, the not so much that I haven't hit that so much.
Hmm.
As I just kind of accomplished the first big kind of like territorial decision that you have to make.
Okay.
So it seems like you don't necessarily like from what I've been playing through, you will have the opportunity to kind of decide like who's going to run territories. Um you there might be a decision later on where you have to like really take a side. But they have made such a great um it's interesting because they've done such an enormous amount of work to try and convince you that the Oath Keepers are which is like the police state basically, like a bunch of law enforcement officers that have like are trying to like enforce the peace, quote unquote, enforce the peace. But like what like it has not been like they do a lot to go out of their way to be like, hey, yeah, these guys actually aren't that bad. Um, when like they're total proto fascist, like absolute hogs. Um, to the point where like their leader was known for having like you're like, oh, the PK commander got murdered. This is like not a spoiler. This is like they tell you at the beginning of the game this happened, which is kind of like what set off some like a lot of these tensions that's going on in the game.
Hmm.
So like the PK commander was murdered. And it's like, oh wow. And they're like, yeah, and his signature weapon was stolen. It's like, oh, what was his signature weapon? A pair of brass knuckles.
Hmm. Okay. So
Yeah, he was known for
sounds like a
killing
game that
zombies
was
with those.
very much too deep in development when anti-police and defund the police sentiment really started taking ground in the last couple of years. Got it.
I would say so. It's like, oh, cool. He's known for beating up the survivors of the population with brass knuckles. Good to know. Totally a guy that I'm sad that he's dead. Everybody's super upset that he's dead. And it's funny because like so it turns out and like they aptly named the two sides the peacekeepers and the survivors. And it's like, how are you going to convince me not to just help the people who are just the
The
survivors?
peacekeepers or oath keepers?
Peacekeepers. Oath keepers are a real life thing that we have in the United States.
Okay.
That are a very dangerous group of military and police that have made secret promises that they'll help take over the country.
Yeah, got it. Because
Yeah.
you said
And
oath keepers earlier.
oh, did
So
I say oath
yeah,
keepers
so
earlier?
yeah,
Sorry. They're not oath keepers. They're peacekeepers.
got
Oath
it.
keepers are a real thing in the United States that are scared.
Got it. Yeah. The
Yeah.
lines are blurred.
Yeah. Peacekeepers are like, yeah, basically they're like, yeah, like, and like the leader of the peacekeepers is like a dude who's like, yeah, you help me, like, I'll help you out if you help me out with like figuring out who killed the peacekeeper commander and all this stuff. And it's like, all right, cool. And it's not, like, he sounds super like reasonable, but then it's important to remember like these guys are like total like fascist authoritarians. And like, I've seen them like basically they are like, oh, you like our commander was murdered, we're gonna shut down access to like people's families and stuff in like the central like area where things are safe, and you guys can't let like we won't let anybody in until you hand over whoever killed the person who did it. And it's like, cool. um that's great. Anyway, and it's like, man, how are you gonna make me not want to side with the survivors? And the way you do that is you introduce this character who is objectively like a complete jackass. Just this absolute douchebag of a character. And he's not a leader. He is like essentially he's the brother to like one of the leaders of the survivors, like one of the people who's in charge of security. It's her brother. And like she's totally fine. But her brother is like the biggest asshole. Like just the biggest asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate him. And like you'll get to see him in coming episodes coming up. And you'll see why I hate him. But yeah, it's like this is how you convince me not to side with the peacekeepers, is you let this guy have a leadership position because of who his sister is. Like pure nepotism. And like it comes to a head at one point, and like I'm still sad that the game just won't let me murder him. because I'm like I'll be totally honest. I have like the whole like premise of like doing this is like Friday Night Lights is like my decisions are being made based off of clear eyes, open hearts, can't lose.
Full hearts, yeah.
Full hearts, sorry, yeah. Clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. I've been saying open hearts, I'm sure. And I'm sure people are like, what the hell, Cameron? It's literally right next to your face. Like, can't you read it?
I put it in every tweet, I feel like, or you know, most of the tweets, and it's definitely in every episode description. So nice.
Yep, it's fine.
When was the last time
I'm
you
pretty
actually
sure
watched Friday Night Lights? Before deciding to do
decade.
this. It's been a while, yeah. Yeah.
I've watched some clips on YouTube
There you
to
go.
refresh myself.
You can be for deciding to murder somebody, you can just do that like Jesse Plemons arc in like season 2 or whatever, where he accidentally murders a person.
Oh, that's true. No, I don't accidentally murder people. I purposely
Fair.
Basically, yeah, I like there is a sense of
spoilers for
yeah.
you know, Friday Night Lights, by the way. Like decade plus spoilers.
Like 20-year-old show.
Yeah.
No, like for me, it's more of a like the thing that I've been encountering is, and this is actually one of the reasons why I put a trigger warning up at the beginning of there will be a trigger warning at the beginning of next episode because some stuff does happen, and I like 100% like at the time callously just like kind of like brushed it off. Like I very much become like I've been putting in a lot of hours into this game, and it's made me quite like. I'm surprised how numb I've become to kind of like the tragedy in this world, and it's quite it's interesting, and I'm really glad that I do have the kind of clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose mantra, because there are times when I know instinctively like I just really just want to like kill this person, or like I just want to be done with this person, but I remember the mantra and I go, okay, we're going to go through with this. In this upcoming episode. So at the tail end of this past episode, there was a decision made in regards to the quest line that we were doing. And, that's going to lead up to the quest line in this upcoming episode. That is kind of the focus of the episode. And it is like, it's a good one. It's a good one. It's interesting because like there's a point in this episode where it gets bugged, like the game gets bugged, and so like there's like a good chunk of this game that I have to like actually like excise footage from because it's just me running back and forth trying to get the quest, like the thing to progress.
Yeah,
and I think that's really where I'm walking away from this game on. And I'm not walking away from it just yet, but like when I'm done with this game, a lot of times I feel like this game is like really seriously hamstrung by some of the jankiness and bugs in the game. It is to the point where it can get pretty frustrating at times because it's like I just want to talk to this person, but the game thinks that sometimes the AI detection of enemies is weirded out. Like it thinks that there's an enemy nearby, so it won't let me talk to an NPC or won't let me progress through a door to do a cutscene. Which is what happens in this episode is I can't open a door because opening that door is tied to a following cutscene, and that leads to events. And so it says there's an enemy nearby. I've gone through and like killed a bunch of enemies and whatnot, forced the game to like respawn enemies so for me to kill them. And so like by the time I get to the end of this quest, like I have murdered a lot of zombies. Like I have butchered a ton of zombies, and so it's to the point where like violence is like. Particularly in this episode, I've gotten quite numb to the violence that I've had to endure and like the bug and everything. And so I don't act the way that I think I normally would react to kind of the circumstances of what happens at the end of that episode. So that's why I went back and I like recorded like a trigger warning thing, like warning for it to be put at the front of the episode. Because part of that trigger warning is I don't really treat it as serious as I should. Because I just had gotten so like gamified at that moment. Like it was like, oh, an NPC killed themselves. It's not like a person killed themselves, which is kind of how they play it off.
Yeah.
And me not recognizing that and not having a correct reaction to it is why, because otherwise I would just be like, okay, this is part of a violent series, a suicide's in it, that's fine. But part of it is like, we should not be nonchalant about suicide. It should be taken seriously. It is a serious subject, even in a video game.
Yeah, I mean, I
And it harkened back to me from funny enough, you just played through these games again, but it harkened back to Life is Strange.
mm-hmm,
That big momentous decision that you have, like those decisions you have to make in
yep,
episode 3
episode
of the
two,
first season.
I
Episode
think.
2,
Yeah,
yeah, like that.
on the
That for
rooftop, you
me,
mean? Yeah.
yeah, on the rooftop. That scene is such a like. That scene was such a like pivotal and difficult moment for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because of like just how scary it is in that moment
Yeah.
with how they're doing it, and in some ways it's kind of not reflected here in this game, but like they want you to consider this very seriously because this is a very tragic moment,
Mm-hmm.
and like I just do not handle it that way. And so without a doubt I just felt like it was super necessary to put in a trigger warning. Like this game does cover some really rough subjects, some really rough moments.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why I hate the brother of this gal, who I think you get introduced to in episode 10, um, the reason I hate him is in relation to me actually having like a reaction, to one of these moments, where like the game does like they were not wrong to put "Stay Human" as kind of like the subtitle on this game.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of decisions that you have to make that are either going to be extremely calloused but beneficial to you, or you can make the quote unquote human choice and like try to evoke kindness and put kindness into the world when otherwise it wouldn't be there and is very much expected not to be there. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think the game does a great job of giving you these moments, and I'm excited to get more of those. But like recently, like I just like played through a bunch of them, a bunch of episodes, put those in the can, have those ready for editing. And I'm excited to get through more of the game. Like it's a fun game, it's a cool story, and there's a series of hooks that are going on right now that are pulling me like through it. But it's making me make hard decisions, not because both sides are good options, but because neither option is really ideal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's those moments that I'm really appreciating out of the game.
Yeah. It's trying to make the best out of bad situations. It's
Yeah.
interesting, obviously, having not played the game myself or anything like that. I can very easily understand why you might struggle taking that kind of content seriously in a game where you're destroying and dismembering not only zombies, but I imagine there's plenty of like
Oh yeah.
you're killing plenty of like bandits and other people and stuff. And so I
Oh yeah.
think
No,
like
I straight up murder regular people who are like, I'll be running across the rooftops and somebody will throw a rocket,
yeah.
and that's them trying to knock me off the roof so that they can kill me and take my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I get thrown a rock at, and I'm like, okay, cool. You threw a rock. I'm gonna throw a knife at your face,
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna leap off this roof, and I'm gonna take my friggin' like rickshaw machete, and I'm gonna put it through. Like I'm gonna take your head off in front of your friend. Like this game
All that to
gets
say,
violent.
all that to say, like a game like this treats death very differently than a game like Life is Strange. And so I think it's almost I don't want to say like they shouldn't be trying to handle or approach, serious story elements like, an NPC suicide or something like that. But I think they have to there has to be an understanding of the game that the person who is playing signed up to play is not did not come in for like that kind of experience or storytelling or something versus something like it's yeah, obviously that moment in Life is Strange, one of the moments I always talk about as like the most tense I've ever felt in a game because this other character, this completely innocent character's life is in my hands for no reason other than like story purposes or whatever. But like it was very much like it comes down to, did you read the right thing or find the right note or can you say the right thing in this conversation? And that's like wildly, tense and yeah, can absolutely be a very traumatic experience if it goes one way or the other kind of thing, versus a game where, yeah, if you just killed 50 people and now one other person that you don't really know or don't really necessarily have a relationship, or even if you do, but they go that it's even like Dying Light versus something like, some of those iconic kind of moments akin to that in The Last of Us are, I think, handled wildly differently tonally. And there is, I think, care in particular in The Last of Us. I think there's care put into like trying to set those characters apart and make them characters, so that you're not just saying, "Oh my god, an NPC just killed themselves in this cutscene. Okay, now let's move on and play the next chunk of the game." And I don't
Yeah.
know how integral this character in particular is that you're kind of referring to, but
It's a total missable side quest.
yeah, okay,
Like I said, I don't like the trigger warning is there because suicide's important, and like if we're going to be like if people are going to be talking about suicide and including suicide in stuff, like it should be treated seriously.
hmm
And because I didn't at that moment, like I don't blame myself not for treating it seriously. Like it's totally understandable, like why I don't. But for the like for the awareness and for those out there who could be um like I can't control how people are going to react to the content that I make.
hmm
But if I think that I could be putting somebody in a position where they're going to have difficulty with that, I want to give them a heads up.
yeah,
And that's all that is.
yeah,
And so I want to let people know that. So if you're struggling with something like that, or you have struggled with that, and something like that could trigger you, cause you to like have even a moment of discomfort because of that, I don't want you to have to deal with that. So feel free, like that trigger warning will be there for you to let you know you can skip that episode.
yeah, no.
Like big important story moments aren't happening in that episode. It just like so you don't have to worry about it.
And that's another thing I was going to ask is, when you kind of initially pitched this project, your the episodes that you were going to do were basically just going to be the main storyline stuff. Have you started? It's admittedly, I've not been like keeping up myself and actually watching them as you send them my way. Have you kind of veered into doing more side quests in these recordings, or are you still doing like predominantly main storyline stuff, and then you're doing extra side quest stuff to level up your character or get stronger or whatever outside of the Friday Night Dying Light episodes?
This is the one time that I veered into doing a side quest as part of the like actual recording for the stuff. And looking back on it, like it was not like I made that choice kind of like in the moment,
hmm
not really thinking about the overarching series and like moments of that. And so with that being said, so me doing this allowed me to like the thing about it is like you do find out some information from this that is not critically important, but does flesh out additional stuff on the back end. Like the kind of like the because the A plot is what you're doing in the main story quests. The B plot, which is kind of like the overarching mystery of Aiden and like his past. This is like this quest somehow kind of gets tied into it a little bit. It's a bit tangential to it,
hmm
but it does have like some like it does give reference to larger ramifications in that overarching story of Aiden's background and his over like because what I'm trying to do is to get answers for this more overarching plot.
Got it.
Like technically speaking, everything in this main storyline is a side quest to get back to finding the person you're looking for in the fisheye, etc. And so all of this is a like so technically it wasn't like a totally random side quest. It was kind of tangentially related to the main story,
hmm
but it just happened to have been that way. And I kind of recognize that as like a hey, I'm gonna just do the main story from here on out. Like this was kind of a mistake. We're gonna get back on track with the main story. So main story will start not with this upcoming episode 9, but episode 10 will get us back to doing the main story quest stuff.
Got it.
I think is I kind of picked it up at the same time that I picked up some story quest stuff, and so it kind of got jumbled into there.
Got
So
it. Makes sense. Okay.
also, I wanted more parkour XP because after doing that, I unlocked the thing that lets me run on walls. And then when you run on walls, you can also jump off the wall to like so you can get farther from like greater distances by running up of the wall
mm-hmm.
and then jumping from the wall over to a landing, so you can get over to places before that you couldn't reach because you couldn't go from the point A to point B, or and so you made that point C, and then you went point A, walls point B, B to C. So those are cool. Also,
Okay.
one of the main quests, or one of the actually I think it was one of the side quests that I did here as well. Um, is there is a comment that somebody makes because you're like, oh, he's gonna settle a bet for us, and it's like you can't pick him. That guy runs on walls, and it's like reference to this thing I just unlocked. Awesome. Don't think that's accurate. I think that they are referencing that you run on walls, but it's fine. It worked out that way. I enjoy it.
Okay. Cool. Any final thoughts there on Dying Light 2 before moving on?
Yeah, to this point, still like the actual like combat at that game is still like weird, but at the same time still feels great. Like there are still really amazing moments of it is such a weird combat system in that it is just like not a typical way that you would encounter like a melee focused first person game.
Mm-hmm.
But man, does it feel great like to take on a group of enemies and just take them out one by one, even when they're trying to like double team you, like circle behind you, stuff like that. Like there are moments where like I will like, oh, this guy's gonna come at me with a power attack. Cool. I throw a dagger at his face, and then I bring in my weapon, and then I murder him with a power attack. And his buddies are like right there, and so I just like go after the next one, and like putting the other guys that I'm in the middle of a fight with on the defensive while I take care of their like this guy who's wounded and on the ground, and I'm gonna go for another power attack to like lop his head off in an execution style. Like he's on his hands and knees, and I'm about to take my machete down on him or my axe down on him, but his guys are coming up to me, so I do a quick attack to his two friends to put them in defensive positions so they can't attack me right away. Then I come back, murder this guy, then I'm going after his two friends. Moments like that are extremely satisfying. Moments that do suck are when you're running across a rooftop, you're jumping over to another rooftop, and you get pegged in the head by a rock because a dude on the ground saw you and throws a rock at you. And you're like, what the crap? And then you turn around and you're like, okay, cool. You're all dead. You murder them. Anyway.
All right.
I do get pretty blood nighty, pretty bloodthirsty in this game. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Sounds like you're getting a full heart.
Well, I'm taking their full hearts.
There you go. Exactly. That's You're getting a full heart one way or another. Cool. We will segue over then to Tunic. This is one of the games came out 2 weeks ago now.
Yep.
Over on Xbox. Indie game, long in development, a very Zelda-like kind of game, going back to those old the original Legend of Zelda Link to the Past, that kind of like, here's a world, you're gonna go like find some things. This is one I first played at PAX West probably like 4 or 5 years ago now or something like that. It's been a while that Tunic has been on my radar. In particular, it's a Finji Co. Published game. They connect themselves with some really good stuff like Night in the Woods and game like Overland, stuff like that. And then when this one started getting like preview footage out there, and like when the demo came to Xbox last year, it was like, oh, actually it's like, brutally difficult, and the boss fights are going for a Soulsborne-esque kind of vibe, and I was like, no, damn it, I don't want it to be that. And so I was kind of ready to be like, all right, well, I guess I'll skip, I'll bypass this one, much like I did like Death's Door last year or something like that. And then, like, at the 11th hour, they also made this an Xbox Game Pass game when it launched, because that was another thing of like, originally it was like, oh, it wasn't going to be on Game Pass, and then suddenly it was. And so I actually downloaded it to my system while I was at Disneyland, and played it on my phone through the xCloud, like one of the nights when I was back at my hotel room. And that was not a good experience at all. Mobile controls
Janky
are,
Wi-Fi.
are terrible, and then yes, janky hotel Wi-Fi very much was like cutting in and out. But I was able to get through like the first kind of like chunk of the game, and I was hooked enough to get me to come check out the rest of it when I got home. And I think the big selling point was Andy Cortez in his like little, TikTok style or little 1 minute review saying that like, hey, this has a no fail mode in the accessibility options if you want to turn that on, if like combat gets too difficult for you. And I was like, perfect. And that really came in handy, especially playing on the phone when was not as responsive to some of the baddies as I would have liked.
Yeah.
So came home, booted it up. It's just a really like, if it didn't have some of its like extra little gimmicks, it would still be like a very well made Legend of Zelda like game. But the fact that the game is like, it doesn't give you waypoints or anything like that. It gives you clues about where to go and what to do next in the world through through the collectible instruction booklet manual that you find throughout the game. You'll find pages of a Nintendo style original NES style instruction booklet that will give you things as straightforward as like, here's the control scheme and and what buttons do, or it'll be like, here's the overworld map to kind of give you a sense of like where you are and where you should be going and stuff like that. And even that is like a mix of English and this like completely made up language. So sometimes you just have to like put things together through contextual clues, and like, or even like little writings or drawing in the margins of a page or something will kind of like give you a clue as to what you're supposed to do next. Or when you come across this thing in the game, you should push this button for blah blah blah, and it's just really clever in how it like kind of doles out that information over the course of the game. I very much enjoyed my time with it. The combat was like, got to a point very quickly on where I was like, I'm not going to have the patience for that.
Mhm.
So I played a little bit of it, but I think like even in the Let's Play that I did, by the end of that Let's Play, like my third or fourth attempt on the boss, I felt like I was, getting dicked over by certain things. So I was like, screw it. I'm just gonna turn on the no fail
No
mode.
fail.
And
Hey,
just
you
kind
know
of
what?
move from there. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. No.
I think that's great. I
And
think that is a wonderful accessibility feature.
indeed. And I would not have enjoyed or experienced this game without it. So very much, enjoy, those kinds of things. Or like I might have enjoyed it, but I wouldn't have had the patience for it to continue
Mhm.
on. Like, I think the last time I held off on something like that was something like Celeste. And even there, like, I played through Celeste without turning on any kind of like the accessibility things, and got to like the summit and kind of like beat the game. And
Mhm.
then at that point went back and turned on some things to go and do like all the cleanup and get like all the extra little things, and still had more fun doing that than like the struggle bus of everything else. Um, and with Tunic, like even combat aside, there was so much joy in finding the secrets of Tunic, like finding little hidden things here and there, um, and some of it is like there's a whole bunch of just completely optional stuff that you can go through the entire game and not find, um, and like you can still experience and beat the game, and even some of the optional things that you can find don't aren't going to like improve your stats or anything like that. They don't like they're just fun secrets in the game, and finding those was such a like I basically I tweeted out, I recorded the Let's Play and then stayed up until 5 a.m. finishing the game and then spent like another night or two just kind of going in and like finding secrets and exploring, the margins of the instruction booklet to see like the things I'd missed here and there. And so yeah, it's a really cleverly built game. And there was admittedly one section I played through. I was like, I don't even know how you would do this without without the no fail mode on, because there are elements of the game that will kind of like lower your max HP until like unless you get it back up to, or get to like for the sake of a the common language, like a Dark Souls campfire kind of thing. Like this game
Mhm.
has versions of that mechanic, and that'll restore your health and do all that stuff. Because it has its own like little Estus flasks and stuff like that. But if you kind of get caught in these areas, or some of these enemies will be able to attack you, and they will not only will they take your health down, but they will like deteriorate your max health. And there were places where I was just watching that go down. I was like, how would you even do this if you didn't have that? It turns areas into basically like one hit kill zones. And it wasn't until like finding out like, hours down the road that there was like an item I could have equipped that would have like protected me against that kind of like environmental thing. And it's a thing that's kind of like alluded to in the manual, but because it's a made up language and stuff like that, you have to kind of decipher a little bit of what's going on, or you have to do a little bit of trial and error with some of these things to realize like what you need to do to really like properly navigate that area. And I was like, oh, like even finding something out like that was like really cool and really satisfying. So yeah, Tunic, a lot of fun. It's a game that like if it does eventually come to PlayStation, I will probably pick it up again and go through and just like have a fun time going for the platinum. I got the 1,000 out of 1,000 achievement score, which is, not the most common thing for me to do. But I had a blast because so many of the achievements are just tied to like collecting the secrets and finding little things here and there in that game. And so yeah, it's just a fun, joyous game of discovery that, like, as I was playing through it, I found myself thinking, this is how people talk about Dark Souls and Elden Ring right now, of like
Yeah.
finding these things. And I'm like, I would love that if the game was as welcoming to that level of exploration as a game like Tunic is. And alas, I look at some of those FromSoft games and they just don't want me to have that joy without much suffering. And I'm just
Yeah,
not
no.
interested in dealing with the suffering as the trade-off for that.
I it's interesting because when I think about that, I think that Elden Ring is probably the least suffering inducing game
Mm-hmm.
that From Software's put out. Maybe it's because like its reaction to like Sekiro being like the most suffering game they put people through,
Mm-hmm.
where like there is no greater get good game than Sekiro, because Sekiro doesn't have levels or anything that you can like you don't get experience. You just have to beat it based off of skill. And like no, there's no cheese to bosses. It is just like the mechanics of the game. That's it.
So
And so
then wait, like, because I played a little bit of Sekiro, and I definitely lost something. Like there was a Souls-esque mechanic when I died and stuff. So what did that go towards, if not like improving stats and leveling up?
I think that's for buying items and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Like getting tool like ninja tools
Hmm.
is what I believe.
Oh,
That's
get
what I
like
think that goes into.
adding like kunai and shurikens and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like getting more tools costs money. So because and also I think improving like your flask,
Okay.
that goes into it as well. In Elden Ring, improving your flask is not tied to that at all. It's tied to finding like items under these like little mini golden trees. And there's enemies around there, sure, but and the thing about this game is that they've changed things up where you literally like running in and grabbing something and then getting out on your horse is like a totally normal thing to do.
Yeah.
It is easy to do. It is purposeful. They've given so much freedom in this game to do as much as you want. And I guess this is a good transition.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are we going to segue into the Elden Ring talk, or did you have any questions or anything on Tunic that you wanted to?
Yeah. No, because my brother-in-law also picked up Tunic,
Okay.
and so like I've seen a lot of stuff, I've heard a lot of stuff. It sounds like it's a really cool game. I probably won't get into it just because I have way more on my plate about like what I want to get into before I would get to something that is less interesting to me than like Tunic is.
Hmm.
But I'm glad to hear that it's done well because I've met the developer of Tunic. He's a super nice guy, like
Hmm.
really, really nice. I've seen him at so many different trade shows over the years that we've gone to. Like I first met him at PSX in 2016
Hmm.
and just is like the nicest dude who is just trying to make like was just trying to make a cool, fun Zelda-like game with a cute little fox that he designed.
Yep.
And I just think that that was just like the coolest. Like he's just one of the coolest guys that you'll meet.
Yeah.
And I hope, and I'm glad that this is done well because this has been a labor of love for him for many, many years.
Yeah, and he
Um,
he definitely nails it, knocks it out of the park. It's, I mean, admittedly, I think I'm only up to like 4 games, 2022 games, but it like I can easily see this staying in the top 10 throughout the year. So
that's kind of the impression that I've gotten from a lot of people is that this is a early contender. Some people are really like incredibly fond of it. This might end up being their game of the year.
hmm.
Um, like not too many of those people, but like enough of them that I would say like I'm really happy to see that Tunic is probably going to do super well,
Hmm.
especially since it got Game Pass access. So
Yeah.
it's a great way of getting people into this game, and I think Tunic, the design of it is incredibly adorable, but also seeing some of the like decisions about like hidden stuff like this is definitely itching a certain niche for a certain type of gamer that I am not that gamer.
Hmm.
I'm not big on whole unlockables, collectibles, stuff like that. So like the idea like the game is circled around you collecting the pages of this instruction manual. No.
Yeah. This is very much this game. There were a lot of times through this game where I got very Witness vibes. The Witness,
Yep.
um, and that was my game of the year in 2016. Because I was a sucker for all those puzzles and the like the triumph I felt when when I solved one of those puzzles is the triumph that people describe when they beat a Souls boss or an Elden Ring boss, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And so like figuring out the thing that I was supposed to find in some of these places was like so much fun and so joyous. It almost made it like harder going back and doing like new game plus for the game, because the game will open up a new game plus for you, is because like at that point you're carrying over all the items and all the weapons and stuff you had. So the kind of like breadcrumbs it gives you of like, here's where to go next and here's what to do next. There was definitely like when I went back to do the new game plus stuff, I was like, I don't even remember where this place was. So I don't know how to get to where I'm trying to get to for like, I'm
There
looking
you
at the
go.
manual and I see like the area on the page of the manual, but I'm like, but where in the overworld did I go to get to that place? um because like the order of like the game is so well crafted, and the pages you get like at the right places when you need them to kind of help guide you along in that journey. That like when I had kind of the full thing at the end for like round 2, I was like, I don't remember what the order of operations was here. Crap. But yeah, it there was definitely a lot of like the Witness vibes to some of the puzzle work as well. Including like the idea that like some of the hidden secrets are just going to be like audible things of like, oh, there's a wind chime and it's kind of like playing a distinct pattern, and how do you translate that into other mechanics of the game or something like that to find this hidden thing. And just like really nerdy cool things like that for me, that as you're shaking your head are not nearly as fun as going and bashing your head against an Elden Ring boss for days on end. So yeah, okay, we'll segue there over back to Elden Ring talk. So you mentioned before we started recording, like, yeah, I'm at the final boss of Elden Ring, and I'm like, I listened to last week's show. You were at the final boss of Elden Ring last week too. so
That is
so
correct.
how's that going there, Cam? A week on.
It's hard.
Yeah,
The answer, and it's the same answer as last week. The answer that I need to do is not because like I've been trying to like not cheese the boss,
you're
but I've
trying to
been
just
trying to
brute
fight.
force your way through it instead of actually go and like fight other side bosses and
I'm
level up
trying
and
really
stuff.
hard not to grind because I know other people have beaten it around my level, and I don't want to like over level myself to the point where it's easy. Which is a weird thing for me to say because normally I don't care.
Yeah.
Um, because I literally like will like freely cheese like I like early levels when I play Elden Ring.
Mm-hmm.
I've played through four, like I have four characters, active characters in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I have actively like gone through and like done an early cheese to get like over leveled at the beginning of the game, and I have no problem with over leveling. The thing about it is like
It,
for me to over level at this point
is it?
takes such a tremendous amount of work.
I'm curious because there are two cheeses I've heard of or seen through the grapevine. I'm curious if it was either of these. One involves like basically a still dragon that you can just kind of like just hack away at until
Yeah,
eventually you get you get a bunch of whatever the Elden Ring version of souls are, or the bird cheese.
I've done both.
You've done both. Cool.
The dragon one's the beginning one you do at the beginning because if you get a bleed weapon, it cuts down from it taking around 45 minutes
Mm.
to only about taking about 20 minutes.
Yeah, I
But
watched.
you can basically go from like level 2 to
Mhm.
level 50 in a single moment.
Nice. I watched like like I think it was like an outside Xbox video or something where they kind of like detailed that and just kind of showed like dwindling away at the health, and I was like, it reminded me of. I immediately got flashbacks to the Adamantoise fight in Final Fantasy 15 of just the hour I spent just chipping away at that boss in that game for
Yep.
like the one of the last trophies I needed for the platinum.
Yep. So I did that. And then I've done the bird one. The bird one takes a significant more amount of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely worth it because you can like just like it really helps you at a certain point of the game where like you need to be grinding. The problem is that I've gotten to the point now where for me to level up, Trevor, takes roughly around 150,000.
Yeah, it's you and Frank talked about that last week. Like doing, I imagine the bird exploit, you'd have to do it like 7 or 8 times to get the level up.
No, I have to do it
Oh, way more than that.
like 30 times.
Okay.
I'm at the point now where like because the bird exploit gives you around 11,000.
Mm-hmm.
14,000 if you use an item that boosts the runes that you get. It takes me like 30 times to like get like a level up.
Got it.
And I need to get if I wanted to like have an easier time, I would need I probably need to level up another like 12 to 15 times
Mm-hmm.
to get like the stat buffs that I need for it. I have tried like figuring out different fight styles, play styles. Like basically at this point, I don't want to level up more because I want to like figure out like what it would take for me to beat the boss at this point.
Mm-hmm.
That is not spending like several hours grinding away to try to unlock like or to get more levels to do this. The thing about it is that it is frustrating because I have now with my time I've actually gone and grabbed other weapons that I've like heard people talk about or that I've seen a lot of ghosts use like when you run around the world you see people use different weapons and
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of people that use a lot of the same weapons. And so I've like gone and found those weapons and gotten them and like leveled them up and they're really good and I've tried them up against the boss and it's like it's just not doing as well as it was before.
Mm-hmm.
They've also like nerfed some items and weapons, so like a lot of people would just be like, "Well, aren't you just using the Horfrost Frost Stomp?" Because they nerfed it. It's no longer as viable, guys. Like, deal with it. All right.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to use that one skill that everybody used to cheese the boss to beat the game. I want to do it my way.
So
I want to do it with my giant worm blade that lets me leap onto people and spout like a fountain of lava at their feet to burn them to death. That's what I want to do, but it won't work against this giant end boss that keeps on like flying up into the air and like launching spears of light that like come at me so fast I can't get away from all of them and then murders me. Or it summons a literal Elden Ring around me that then brutally murders me. And I'm trying, all right? I'm trying, and it's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
This like because there's weapons that and abilities that would be really good against the end phase of the boss, but are really bad against the first phase of the boss.
So
like I'm struggling, man. I'm struggling, and I know that the answer is just to level up more, to grind out more levels because I'm under leveled at this point.
Uh-huh.
But god damn it, Trevor, I want like it's hard. It's hard. I love it. I can't get enough of it. and I hate it. I hate how much I love this excruciating suffering process. It's so dumb, and I hate it.
Yeah, so in that vein, this is also not the kind of thing you're gonna like phone a friend and have somebody help you on this boss fight to get through it, right?
For whatever reason, I can't connect to like so. Like let people know. My multiplayer is screwed up because of a PSN update.
Oh,
I don't know if they fixed it.
you fell into that camp because yeah, that seemed to hit people like weird randomly and weirdly because I saw that I saw that like update of like, hey, don't download the new PSN update because you might run into these issues. And I was like, well, shit, like my system is set to auto download that stuff, so I know it's already on my system. Uh-oh. Good thing I'm not really playing any multiplayer stuff. Oh, wait, Fortnite. And then I was like, well, if I miss a few days of Fortnite, no big deal. But yeah, I did not encounter any of those issues. I've encountered like in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which I'm also playing, but I'm not far enough in to talk about. Like I've definitely been getting like shit, you like your account or you are disconnected from Shift. You are reconnected from Shift or to Shift. But like I think that's just Gearbox's infrastructure is terrible because I remember
It
encountering
actually
that
might
same kind of
be.
stuff at the beginning of Borderlands stuff as well
Yeah.
because it's very much like and I've seen them kind of comment like, hey, sorry, you know, our network's been finicky, here's free
Yeah.
skeleton keys, please keep playing. Which again, it doesn't matter to me anyway because I'm running through it solo and stuff, but yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah,
Anyway,
it
yeah, but
seems
I
weird
like.
that there wouldn't have been any kind of like hot fix to that if for the amount of
There
people I
might.
saw kind of like it
Yeah.
affecting.
Here's the thing. It might not be that. It might just be like I don't know. The multiplayer can be finicky sometimes, where it's like I ran into the same thing with the General Dawn fight, which is like I was trying to summon people at the summoning statue thing for it, and like it would just be like unable to summon cooperator. So it's entirely possible that like while I'm trying to summon these people, they get summoned by somebody else first. Like entirely possible that that's happening. I don't doubt it. It could be a multiple of like different things, problems, nat error type issues. Like could be that, and it just says gives me the same unable to summon cooperator. So like that hasn't been working, and so I've been using Mimic Tier to try to like deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
And like the fact of the matter is like I know what I have to do. It's the same thing that I knew last week. I just have to bite the bullet and do the grinding. But goddamn it, I don't want to grind anymore because it's so hard to grind for levels at where I'm at in the game, and like the leveling that like the level that I'm at 146.
Mm-hmm. Are
And like
there
it's just there might be better or better rune farming things. I haven't really looked into it
mm-hmm.
because I've been trying not to rune farm.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the answer to whenever I fight a boss, if the answer is to just go grind and level up more, then what's the difference between Soulsborne games and other games, right? Like there are people who go through these entire games as like level 1 wretches who use just a club to beat the game.
Yeah, but those are crazy people, Cameron.
I know that they're crazy people, but they can do it.
You
And if
are a
they can do
crazy
it, then
person, but you are also like, you know, not that crazy of a person.
I know. Like I get that, but at the same time for me it's like I know that that's not the case, but I also part of the reason why I love these games so much is a lot of times I run into a boss fight and I just get like wasted on it. And then I go back to it again and I look at it, and instead of approaching it this way, I do it differently. And so it feels more like a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the answer to these puzzles at this point with the end boss that I'm facing is go grind more. And I hate that is the answer to the puzzle on this because it shouldn't be like I have faced bosses that I know are harder
Mm-hmm.
and beaten them through being smarter and figuring out ways around them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, have you looked
But I
at
feel,
how other
yeah,
people are taking on this boss, or is that like is that a like that's a spoiler kind of thing that you're not going to dig into until after you've beaten it?
no, because the answer on how to beat these guys is like a pretty straightforward process. These are not like mechanically, these are not difficult bosses.
Okay.
Mechanically, they are not hard. The problem with them is, like I said earlier, like the stuff that works really well on the first phase doesn't work as well as the second phase. The second phase is a like it goes from a like humanoid fight to a giant like monster fight,
Mm-hmm.
and the stuff that I do to prepare and do things. And part of the problem is like both phases of the boss are really tough for me because of I'm underleveled at this point. But the thing about it is like I was also underleveled against a previous boss that I outwitted and beat.
Yeah. I guess the like if you don't want to just go out and like grind for grinding's sake, are there other bosses that you could go and enjoy and like
Yeah,
and do that kind of stuff? Is there a reason you're
that's
not?
what I've been doing.
Oh, okay.
Like when I say I'm going out and collecting weapons, I have to beat these other bosses
Okay.
to get these weapons.
But
Like
they're not giving you
just
enough
last
runes to even like come close to leveling up or getting you closer to that stuff.
not really.
Okay.
Because like they might drop, 40,000, 10,000.
I don't know.
It depends. But like for where I'm at right now, like there is like just last night I went and did a one of the divine towers, which means nothing to you, but for the people out there, I did the Kaled divine tower. So I activated one of the great runes, and then I also went down to the basement and ended up getting this like really cool sword. And I did some experimenting with it. I really liked what it was doing, and I tried using it, and it was pretty effective on both phases of the boss. But like, I'm still just not getting, like, I'm not playing to the advantage of that style of weapon because it's a colossal weapon, which means it's a much heavier weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's the
It's
fastest one I've seen of those.
You're the Mandalorian with the Darksaber. It's
pretty much
you have to change the way you fight.
It's funny you say that, Chandler, because or not Chandler, sorry, Trevor. Sorry, you mentioned the Mandalorian and Star Wars and stuff, and normally when I talk about that, I think of my time with my old podcasting host Chandler.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I knowing he's your old podcasting co-host, I'm like we've been doing this one for a couple years now.
I know. I don't know why I had like a flashback to back when the Mandalorian. No, because we were doing this when the Mandalorian came out.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I haven't thought of Chandler in a while. That makes me sad. Actually, I should check up on him. Yeah. But like yeah, Trevor. Like it's funny you say that because the sword that I have literally spouts out like black flame. That reminds me of the Darksaber.
Nice.
So it's funny that you mentioned that.
Nice. So
yeah,
it's
cool. I love it.
Even aside from like trying to do the grinding and stuff, like, are you at least getting like enjoyment of taking on these other side bosses that aren't the big bad final boss?
Because yeah, of course.
Obviously,
like, they're so much fun. Like the thing about this game is that it has more bosses than any From Software game has ever had, and they're in and technically, and I talked about it to Frank. Like technically speaking, like when I first talked to you, when I think the week before last week, I talked to you about it. I was at this fire giant, and wait, was I on the episode 2 weeks ago?
It was like 3 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago. I was on this fire giant boss that I had been told, and I found out I was pretty close to the end game at that point. And like the events of the game and things that were happening at that point were like very obvious we were getting to end game. I say as I've put in probably 20 plus hours since then.
Yeah, shout out to Angel, who I know has like checked in and commented and stuff on the video.
Yep. There's that, but so I like the fire boss I knew was like, so getting to the fire boss, technically I only had to have been in the fire boss is technically like the 5th mandatory boss you have to beat. And then there's
okay, yeah, this you definitely got into with Frank on last week's episode.
Yeah.
You were talking
so
these kinds of things.
Yeah, so I'm definitely like technically I think there's only like 8 to 10 mandatory bosses in the entire game.
But how many have you taken out?
All but these ones.
Oh, okay.
This last boss.
Well, sorry, I'm not of the mandatory ones. How many?
Oh,
how many bosses do you think you've taken out in your Elden Ring time? Because that was another
probably between 20 to 30.
Okay, there's like way more out there still for you to
oh yeah, there's tons
go and face off against then. So I'm especially because we talked a little bit about before we started recording, like you like are at a place where you want to move on, but you will not move on from Elden Ring until you've beaten it. And so I'm curious, like, is is the resistance to that because you know that if you beat that final boss, you're going to give yourself permission to like move on from this game, and you don't want to let it go yet. Is there some kind of like weird psychological thing going on in your mind there, Cam, of you don't want it, I can't quit you kind of vibes?
No, I wish I could say that was the case. I wish I could say, yeah, I'm so good at the game that I just like I'm challenging myself this way. No, no, because like the other bosses, like I'm not too interested in hunting them down. I one of the bosses that I knew I was on the path to unlocking. Um, I don't want to unlock that boss because that like the I found out like I'm like if it gets to that point, that's just gonna make me sad,
Okay.
and I don't want to be that like
Oh,
I because
like story
he's
wise, there's just going to be tragedy behind behind that boss and the story
yeah,
that has led up to
and I
that.
don't want that.
Okay.
I don't want that.
You already
Because
know it clearly. You've already like it's already been spoiled for you, whatever. You just don't want to experience it
well,
firsthand.
it's one of the bosses that everybody's been talking about is really hard to beat,
Oh, okay.
and I didn't realize that the two of them were connected until I got
Mm.
this
Until you found
eh,
a piece of lore that like gives you enough backstory of like, oh, secretly this person is the chosen one, and now you have to kill them because they've turned whatever
well
those whatever
they
those
share
those
this
Elden
yeah
Ring at
they share
the
the name
Souls esque
like
lore kind of things
they
are.
share the same name, so I know for a fact they're the same person.
Got it.
I don't know how it gets to that point, but I don't want to because I've helped this person and I saved them from dying, and I don't want it to lead them to me having to kill them.
You don't want,
Because
yeah,
guess
you don't
what?
want to
That's
finish.
already happened twice. I've already had to kill somebody. I had to kill one of my favorite characters in this entire game.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's what you get
and
with
like
George R. R. Martin. That's his influence, I'm sure. slash no, that's already the influence of
yeah, that's already with From
the
Software.
Soulsborne games. Like that's already well in there. You're just doubling down on that with adding George R. R. Martin into the mix.
Yeah, it was brutal. Just because like I also saw like the clue that said that you're probably gonna have to kill this person,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like I didn't want to because
Yeah.
he's just one of the coolest characters in the entire game. He's somebody who you meet like you can meet early on in the game who's just like the coolest dude, and there's other characters where it's like you meet this character named Rogier who early on in the game like gets afflicted with a status that you're like, oh, that's weird that he got afflicted with a status, and now he's like, yeah, I'm retired, I can't go out anymore and do this, and so he's hanging out at the like like it's the round table hold, and he's hanging out there, and he's just there, and he has this like festering situation that's going on that he's hiding under like a blanket, but you can still kind of see it.
Mm-hmm.
And as you talk to him, like when you talk to somebody else, they're like, yeah, he's afflicted with this curse, and you're like, okay. And unsurprisingly, like there's or very surprisingly, there's no like mechanic to find something to save him. He just eventually dies.
Hmm.
And like there's the thing about it is like he's an instructor, so he has stuff to sell. And so when he dies, he leaves behind his gear as well as like it's called a bell. And the silver bells that people like NPCs will drop if they die, you can give to a like an already kind of like corpse merchant who will then like open up their shop basically to like let you buy those items still. So you don't ever lose. Like this is one of the great things they've done now is you don't really miss out on these NPCs who sell stuff, because even if they die, they'll drop their bell and you can give them to this thing and it will let you buy from them.
Got it.
And so that's great. But like also like Rogier was like one of the coolest dudes. He's an early like NPC summon that you can summon to fight a really like one of the first bosses. He's just such an awesome dude. And over time, he's just like super cheerful and like helping you out as much as possible.
That should have been your first clue of like, oh, things are not going to go well for him.
Yeah, there's that. There's also like this blacksmith that's in the hold that is like a curmudgeon-y old man who's like imprisoned there to be the personal blacksmith because he was on a losing side of a war. And he's like chained down, and if you like ask him questions and are nice to him, like he warms up to you a bit. And like nothing super tragic happens with him at this point, but like nothing like I don't want to be like it's also like Rogier. It's not, but at the same time, like you meet these characters that are like good, and you want good things to happen for them,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's
it
not
feels
this
like
world.
It's not this world. I met this like ghost jellyfish that was like that was like asking questions to to a person that wasn't there, and it broke my heart into a million pieces because it was just like it's a little kid
Hmm.
asking where their sister is,
Yeah.
and it's like, you said if we came here we'd be safe, and I'm looking around as like we're surrounded by by creatures and stuff. I'm like, it was not safe, and so now she's like a ghost here, and it just makes like it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that sucks. And
Hidden
she's just
tragedy.
asked,
Yeah.
yeah, the tragedy is in this game, and it's great because like I think this is the one where like things are very like not as complicated. Like the situation is basically like somebody somebody fucked up and now death can't come for things. And so there's this like loop of an issue where you basically have, and it's kind of cool because the overarching story is basically you're one of these things called a tarnished, which is a somebody who is either from these lands or from far away, and you're now here and you're going to go through this entire process of trying to become the next Elden Lord, and it's like a competition. And so you meet people throughout the story that sometimes they're allies, sometimes they're going to be enemies because you're a rival candidate to become an Elden Lord. And as you get further into the game, you become a much more viable candidate and possibly the best candidate. And you start finding out things, and like you meet these characters before that you met that were non-hostile or maybe were hostile to you, that then are allies, or that, but then like eventually comes a time where they're like, cool, this is the moment where I'm going to fight you and I'm going to kill you and remove you from the competition.
Hmm.
And like I've fought some of those dudes before. It's like we were friends.
Yeah.
Like we were friends, and it's like there are no friends among the tarnished. Like only one can become the Elden Lord, and it's like this whole thing, and it's great, and like it makes really great compelling moments of what otherwise just would be, oh, the NPC that you met earlier is going to attack you now. Is like these are actual people that you met, that you did quests with, that you summoned for specific battles, like all sorts of stuff.
Hmm.
There's also like one character that I met early on that like later I found out that like they died in like a sick bed, and and it's like just such a like a this is such a like, wait, what? No, I met that guy not too like a while ago, but like what happened to like what's the story, like what happened to him here? And
And then
it's
and then the NPC just like this, all of this,
yeah.
all of this happened to them.
Do you see the world around us? Do you see how bad it is? Like,
It's
and
it's
that's like
it's
that's one of
a
my yeah.
he's basically Galir from Fantasy High.
Yeah. Like bad things are happening to these people, and it's like, why are these bad things happening to these people? Like a dude's like, I'm gonna go meet with this guy that like I've been hearing legends about, and it's like, cool. And I met him later on the side of the road. He's like, yeah, I haven't met up with him yet, but I look forward to it. And I was like, that's awesome. I came back later, and it's just like he's dead. He was killed by something,
Hmm.
and I'm like, God damn it. Get his gear, get his bell, take it to the hold. Like it's just like you were a cool dude, like you were really helpful. Because early on, when you're like the first, one of the new tarnished that's invited to the hold, they're like, you're the new tarnished, like you're not really a full member of the round table yet. So and this dude is just like, hey there, I can teach you incantations. Like I can teach you some stuff.
Hmm.
Hey, have you heard about this dude in a mask who goes around who's like, trying to set order to the world? I think I'm gonna go join him. And it's like it does not end well for him.
Yeah.
And then I found out later from other people when they're like, oh no, there's like a quest line that you can do that he's a part of it, and he doesn't die there if you unlock the quest line. I'm like, God damn it. Like, but this is why I have four
Just
characters.
exactly,
So I
there you
don't
go. Like replayability. You'll have to once you finally figure out what the hell to do with this boss guy, to end the game, you won't put it away. You'll actually then continue on New Game Plus to try your like perfect run or whatever and save these people and all that stuff.
Trevor, I have a perfect run, and it's called my
I have
it's
a
called
perfect run. It's called not playing.
yeah, there you go. No, I have a perfect run, and it's with another character that I'm not that far into the game with, but I am using a playstyle that I know is quite superior to basically every playstyle. Downside, the end boss is immune to it. So I've already tried that. Didn't work.
Well, there you go.
Turns out it's the only boss where it doesn't work.
Wah, wah, wah.
Anyway,
All
yeah,
right.
I'm having an amazing time with it. I really do think that Elden Ring is like one of the best games that I think has been made in a very long time. If like, and will I think stand the test of time with a lot of stuff. I think by far it's the best Soulsborne game that's ever come out. A lot of people are like, well, I still like Bloodborne more. I'm like, that's fine. You can like Bloodborne more. But Bloodborne was not as accessible, was not as, like, this world is so massive. It's so incredibly huge. And there's so much in it. There's so much story. There's so much everything to this game. It's just so massive. And it tells such a cool and unique fantasy story, even out in, especially in compared to the other, like the Dark Souls games and Demon Souls. Like, it tells such a unique and cool story that feels like this is an incredible epic of a and I mean epic not in like the, oh, it's epic, bro. I mean epic as in like the epic of Gilgamesh, like the epic of like these legendary stories that are told throughout history. I feel like are so inspiring to what we see here in this game, and it has so much going for it that even if you are not looking for a lot of story elements, which are super easy to miss in other Soulsborne games, this one is just so filled with it, and like the lore of the weapons and items and the history of this world is like really, really cool.
All
Also,
right.
there's a dude called the Dung Eater.
There you go. We'll leave it there on the Dung Eater. Cool. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it still, at least, despite your inability to thwart this final boss.
We'll get there.
Hopefully you'll get it this week. And then I'm sure we'll talk about it, in a future. Cool. That's gonna wrap it up for this week's episode. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk about all these fun things. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I do. I want to give a massive shout out to just like the variety of Let's Plays that you're putting out on youtube.com/thatnerdy site.
Thank you.
Whether it's Tunic this week, it was something else something else the prior week. Like every week there seems to be like a really cool, new, interesting game that you're playing. And I think that it's something about like the regular Let's Plays that you're putting out, I think it gives one, it's gonna make it always makes your game of the year list so much more like colorful than the rest of ours.
Mm-hmm.
Like I swear, like most of the time it's like for me, it's just like these were the tent pillar games that are the tent pillar games that everybody played. A lot of the times with my list.
I mean,
and
admittedly,
yeah.
a lot of these are not like. I mean, like one of the ones this last week was also DuckTales, just because I had talked about it on a recent podcast and was like, I'm gonna play the Disney Afternoon Collection. So it's like, some of them are very much like I'm just going to check this out and see if there's anything there, and then I don't really like go much beyond that. I do have a couple in the works that are games that I've been interested in that want to check out. Like one is RPG Time, which is
Mhm.
another it's on Xbox. It's not on Game Pass, but I went ahead and picked it up, and I'm probably going to sit down and record something here in the next couple days. And it's the one that is like hand drawn in a kid's notebook, and you're like flipping through. Like
Mhm.
it has Paper Mario vibes to it, and
That
just
sounds
looks
cool.
like a really cool art style that I'm very intrigued by. And I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it. Like it didn't seem to get like a lot in the way of like review coverage, admittedly, because I think a butt ton of people were still playing Elden Ring or whatever. But yeah, it's definitely one that I'm interested in checking out. That might not have otherwise gotten a deeper look from me. But yeah, cool. Yeah, they're definitely fun to do, and it's I enjoy like the variety of being able to hop in and do those sometimes. This one of the ones this week will just be kind of the opening of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which you could see anywhere else out there, and I will not be
Mhm.
sad if people don't like sit down and watch me playing through it or whatever. But it's definitely like a cool variety, and sometimes it can be like a significant exercise of like what am I going to play for 2 Let's Plays every week. But I have out there somewhere in the mix episode 1 Racer. I picked that
Mhm.
up not too long ago. I was like, I should go back and check that game out. So maybe I'll throw that into the mix here soon as well. Cool. Anything else you wanted to give a shout out to?
Oh yeah, massive shout out to Uppercut for meeting their Kickstarter goal.
Yep.
They have they are one of those outlets that are out there actually I don't think I'll ever forget when they picked up the ball that EGM dropped,
Mm-hmm.
and ever since then they have been doing a lot to help um, writers who otherwise would definitely get looked over at larger publications, and helping them get their start at like just getting their stuff out there, and also paying, like making sure that these freelance people can make a livable wage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they raised their money for, and also for their staff. And I just think that it was super cool. They finally got it. They've been pounding the drum for quite a while. I've been retweeting stuff for them too. Unfortunately, they announced that they were doing the Kickstarter like right after I left my job,
Mm.
and so it's like cool. I can't give anything, but like I can retweet and I can spread the awareness for it. So massive shout out to them for making that happen. They're incredible people over there. Ty, Monty, and of course Eli. Obvious bias from me on that one, but
yeah. No, shout out to everything Uppercut's doing. I was also very glad to see they hit their Kickstarter goal in the last day or two. Yeah, very cool. Shout out to that. You follow me at Trevor J Starkey. I will give a shout out to that D Plus show. This coming month of April content is going to be we're going to do Moon Knight this week, obviously with the first episode of that coming out. So stay tuned for that, and then the rest of April is going to be basically like a Pixar celebration month, where we're going to do the two most recent Pixar movies in Turning Red and Luca, and then we're going to kind of like compare that to like Pixar of old and go back to movies like A Bug's Life and Monsters Inc., some of their earliest non-Toy Story offerings. Because I figure at some point down the line, we'll just do a full month of Toy Story stuff. So yeah, go check that out on that D Plus show this month. Should be a fun set because it's Pixar. So even the weaker elements are still better movies than 90% of what you'll see out there. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest content from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.